Hi, it's MJ from Linus Publications, and this session is going to be on Chuck Grassley. Now, the reason we are covering him is that, as we talked about in the past month or so, we talked about the succession uh, on the presidency. So, if something happens to Trump, the next person in line is J.D. Vance, the vice president. Now, if something happens to him, then it will be the Speaker of the House. If something happens to him, it's the President of the Senate, who happens to be Chuck Grassley. So I am going to do a chat later on the Speaker of the House, but I had already done one on Chuck Grassley, so I wanted to delve into this a little bit and look at where he is. Now, one thing to note, he's 92 years old. So he is definitely, not a spring chicken, but it doesn't seem like he has some of the issues that have surrounded other older people in the Senate or the House. Now, it doesn't look like he has the issues, it seems like his mind is relatively intact. It seems like he's still, he's not having any issues getting around. But again, this is just my opinion. The press may not be covering some of this. So it's hard to say just how functional he is. Now, let's take a look first at his, and I'm not going to cover everything. There's some things in here that have already happened, or it's not going to happen for 2 years. So we're going to just sort of bypass it. Now, this is his natal chart here. This is the USA in the middle, in the center, and this is the transits. So let's take a look at what's happened. Okay. So one of the things that has been going on, and this is the past, is that Pluto has actually been squaring his Venus. And it's coming up to that square. So it happened, but it's going to be coming back again. And it's coming back around the end of July when it's going to be hitting that point again. And this indicates Pluto, again, power plays manipulation. Venus is going to be, in effect, the people around him, the communities. So this is going to be, in effect, manipulation that's hitting areas around him, and typically social type areas. So that's sort of important to know. And that 729 point is sort of around the time that we're seeing, other things happen in charts like Trump and J.D. Vance. Now, the next thing I want to note is that we have Neptune down here opposing Jupiter. So what does that mean? Well, he has unrealistic expectations. I'm not sure if he thinks that everything's going to be okay with everything that Trump is doing. Or maybe he does understand and he sees the limitations of the real world. So he sees that he wants to see some of these policies implemented, but he doesn't like the way they're being implemented. Now, this is an opposition. It's not a break and adjust. So this is something he's in conflict with other people or even himself. So again, we've got the unrealistic expectations against, in effect, the opportunities. Now we next have Neptune in inconjunct, which is the break and adjust, to Venus. This is a little bit of a tough one. What happens is I think he's looking out there and he's not seeing, or he will not see, the world that he recognizes anymore. I think there are so many changes, in effect, again, because this is Venus, there's so many changes to his communities that he may be the type that's sort of saying, what is this? What's going on? I'm not sure how he feels about the ICE people grabbing, immigrants off the street, grabbing high schoolers, not providing warrants, covering up their faces. But I think someone, maybe he remembers other times that it was like this. Okay. I mean, he was born in 1933. So when he was a young boy, he might have seen a lot of photos of Nazi Germany and seeing things like that happen there. So we have this thing that he may not recognize the world anymore, what's going on in it. But we have a really nice angle here. And that's Uranus here making a trine. Yes, a trine, a good angle, an easy angle, something that helps you grow, something that makes you interesting, something that you become interested in the world. And that's what this is. He has probably started to become very interested in things, in activities and real life things that are going on. This is a good change. I mean, it's good. This happened around June. This is happening around June 22nd. So this is actually positive in that he's looking at things, and usually with something like that, there's no fear. It's change that comes to the way he's thinking. Okay. Mercury thinking, going. So it could be he decides to take trips. Maybe nothing extensive, but he wants to learn. He wants to expand his mind. At his age, that's good. Now, let's take a look at the next one we have here, which is the progression. So here, what we have is Venus conjuncting Saturn. First one I want to talk about. Now, that's in the past. And let's take the flip side of this. Let's say you have Saturn conjuncting Venus. Saturn is very repressive. When it lands on your Venus, you feel oppressed. You feel heavy. Don't want to do anything. You can't do things. On the flip side, when Venus lands on your Saturn, and remember, this is a progression. It's not a transit. Transits are very limited in duration. Venus can soften up Saturn. What it does is it brings a sense of ease. So maybe you are restricted in some way, but you see it differently. It also dulls the edges. And in some ways, you tend to grow softer. So Venus is being graceful here. And you're able to reflect on Saturn maybe in a little better way. Now, this might be an indication of, well, what does he want moving forward? Now, next thing we have is we have the Sun right over here making a trine. A trine, another good angle. Sorry. And it's to Uranus. It's the Sun, his identity. This is him seeking change. It is him embracing what's different in the world, respecting it. So he's immersed in change. Now, there are more angles, but I want to just take a step back and say, we've got like two really good angles, and then we've got that Venus conjuncting on Saturn. And as I'm going through this, I'm saying, is this someone that is maybe thinking of stepping back from what he's doing and maybe retiring? Could be. That's a possibility. It could be that he's looking around saying, maybe I don't want to be here any longer. It could also be that, let's say something does happen to Trump, and let's say something happens to both the other people in line. If it comes to Grassley, I was actually thinking he might say, I don't want it. And he could resign at that point. He might not, but there are just so many things in his chart that seem like freedom. I just felt like I was being uplifted when I was reading this. I felt like, oh, there's a world out there. So let's keep that in mind. Now, we've got other angles here, but they're all out 2 years, so we're not going to talk about that. So let's move to the last one, which is the solar arc. In the solar arc, there are two that I want to talk about. We've got Mercury right there, and that's squaring Jupiter. Now, squares are usually, stressful, tense, and stuff like that. Mercury tends to be a little lighter when it comes to stuff like that, and Jupiter tends to be a little lighter too. So a Mercury Jupiter tends to be more on the excessive side. So in this case, he could have great thinking, but he's going to be sloppy. He's going to miss out on the details here. So he could come up with some grand vision of a plan, but not too detailed. It can make him optimistic and positive in life. And maybe not necessarily, that he should be, but it could make him that way. And lastly, what I mentioned here is Pluto opposing Uranus. And that's pretty much right on where it is here. And Pluto, as we mentioned, when it's making the angle, tends to be the manipulation, the power plays. Uranus is the change. So here we have something coming in that is doing power plays, manipulating things to make enforced change. There's conflict here. It's an opposition. So in effect, this is something that will impact him. And could it be why he decides to maybe, have interest in other things? But it's something to keep in mind as we're looking at what the situation is. And as I noted, we sometimes we can't just do Trump's shot to find out what's going on. We have to sort of do, a lot of charts to start getting a sense of what might be happening here. What could be happening is that maybe something happens to Trump that he's just sort of incapacitated. So J.D. Vance is not really president. He's still a VP. And then maybe Trump gets worse, so we start getting power plays next year or the end of this year. So it's hard to tell who's going to be in charge. So we might start seeing some of this succession thing start playing out. So it's going to be interesting. I haven't quite, you need a lot of charts. And this is what I try to stress to people. You can't just get the whole picture in one chart. You need the chart of the United States. You need the chart of the president, Speaker of the House, Democratic Party, Republican Party, all this to make a really informed picture of what might be happening. I hope you enjoyed this reading, and it's great seeing some great trines showing up, or things that, again, invoke the inner spirit. And this is what seems to be happening here. We don't know how it's going to play out, but I like charts that have nice things happening, things you can do with, things that make you grow. Have a great evening, and I hope you enjoyed the chart, and we will talk to you shortly.